Thanks for staying with us. We have a lot more economic coverage for you straight ahead. For a view now on the state of the Israeli economy, we are joined by Uriel Lynn, president of the Federation of Israeli Chambers of Commerce. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much, Nazali, and thank you for inviting me.
Well, let's talk about the Israeli economy. The last GDP report, quite impressive, with a Q2 GDP of 3.7% at an annualized rate. Yet, you're still troubled by some elements of the economy. Tell us why.
Well, let's put it this way, and I'm not going to judge only the first half year of that present year, but I would like to have a little more broader look at the economy. Let's start with that. Israeli today is a very strong economy. There is no question about it, by each indicator possible. The Israeli currency is one of the strongest in the world. The Israeli currency is being revalued against all the major currencies in the world, against the EU, the euro, against the American dollar, against the British pounds. But yet, there is a big danger. The danger is the very fact that the rate of growth is very, very disappointing. And if we look even this half year of the year 2016, the present year, the growth rate of the business sector is only 2.2. And that worries me. Now, in the last 4 years, the rate of growth that we enjoyed in the present decades fell down considerably and dramatically. We had, in the last 2 years, a growth rate of the business sector of no more than 2.3%. And now the first half year, 2.2%. So when we talk about the GDP, it could be a little misleading, because the GDP also includes the public sector and public spending. And I'm talking about the business sector. That should be the major criteria. All right. Well,
you have written that you expected that the GDP could hit the double digits. Isn't that unrealistic?
No, it is unrealistic. And as a matter of fact, if somewhere it was quoted that I said that, that's a mistake. I was always talking about 7%. We had this kind of a growth rate in the previous decade. In the year 2004 and 6 and 7 and 8, till the falling of the world markets in the year 2008, we enjoyed this kind of growth because there was a major economic policy led at that time by Benjamin Netanyahu, who was the Minister of the Treasury, that he really put a great emphasis on growth, reducing prices, doing the necessary thing. And really the energy and the dynamism and the possibility of the individual doing business in Israel to work harder was much more stronger. Today we are eroding the economy. We are eroding the economy slowly.
Speaking of the public sector, your organization is now pushing legislation through the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, to encourage the development of small and medium businesses. Please explain.
Yes, but that doesn't have really a very strong impact. Let's understand that. We are passing labor laws all the time. We are placing more and more load on the employer. We want the employer to protect the environment. We want the employer to protect the consumer all the time and take away all responsibility from the consumer. We are demanding from the employer all the time more and more reports. We are even criminalizing the employers. And in addition to that, we are infringing on the basic rights of the employer. And I'm talking about property right, I'm talking about the freedom of contracts, I'm talking about simply the freedom of speech. There is a tendency today in our country to place more and more load on the employer as if there is no limit to it. And that's very wrong. It's coming from the legislator. It's also coming from the different regulators, and it's also not being avoided by the government. So this is a slow process, and we see the results in a really very low growth. Yet the economy at large is very strong on a comparative basis.
Well, let's speak about that, the bureaucracy in this country. Is that a key issue here that is affecting business development?
Most definitely, yes, definitely. Listen, if you today, we have always to remember that growth is coming from the entire economy, the entire business sector. Growth is not coming from a selected growth engines. The real growth of an economy is the entire business sector. Now, if you're eroding the will and the ambition and the readiness of the people really to build new businesses, and if you are really eroding the ambition and the will to developing a business, you will not see growth. We are today hurting the individual. We are hurting the motivation. And hurting the motivation is a bad thing, and sometimes people do not quite realize that. They don't understand why, because we are not talking about one dramatic strike. We are talking about a process, a slow process. And that's the reason we don't see
that process speed up ahead. Thank you very much for this insight. Do appreciate it, Uriel Lynn. Moving on now, we're going to shift gears just a bit and head over to Jerusalem. Churches own some 25,000 acres